Hi, I'm Glenda Adkisson, the Executive Director of the Paducah Area Chapter of the American Red Cross. Today I have with me Debbie Wagner, who is our Water Safety Instructor Trainer. So Debbie trains water safety instructors. And Debbie, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today and talk about the aquatics program with the American Red Cross.
Thank you.
Can you tell me how, I know that you had been involved in water safety even before you moved to this area and before you got involved with Red Cross. Can you kind of tell me where you started getting interested in aquatics?
Well, actually, I think it began as a child, like it does with most children. Water is in a very inviting environment, and I grew up surrounded by pools and open waters and such. And then as I got into my young adult years, I started learning how to swim during laps for exercise. And then it just kind of went on from there. A friend of mine suggested that I get involved in a water safety instructor training program to become certified to teach swimming. And so I did that, and it's just become an integral part of my life.
Well, and we are certainly happy to have you at the Paducah Area Chapter and involved in our aquatics program. And can you give us just sort of an overview of what all is available through American Red Cross aquatics programming?
Well, there are several things that are available. Of course, one being swim lessons for children from infants all the way up to adults. And age is not a factor. I've worked with children as young as 6 months old and adults up into their mid-70s. So as long as someone has the desire to learn how to swim, the swimming programs are available at different levels that are appropriate depending on the person's needs. As well, our lifeguarding classes, which are very essential to making pools and open water safe, where you have someone that's gone through a lifeguarding program and learns how to appropriately recognize persons that may be in trouble in the waters, maybe a distressed swimmer or an active drowner, in addition to assisting persons who are having difficulty in the water and how to appropriately get them out of the water safely, and as well as some other community programs if you wanted just to learn some basic water safety.
And water safety is such an important area to understand. It's very important as we are around the water. And besides that, it is very beneficial because swimming is a wonderful exercise. And I recall a year or so ago a story in the newspaper where you had been giving swim lessons to a lady. I believe she was maybe in her 70s or so, yes, and had never learned to swim. So it's really not ever too late to learn to swim and be able to enjoy that type of exercise, which is very good if you have maybe arthritis or some of those issues, medical issues, that will not allow you to do other kinds of exercise.
That's correct. Swimming exercise is a very strenuous exercise, first of all, because unlike other exercises, you're really using every muscle in your body. But the nice thing about swimming in waters is that you're getting less stress on your joints and muscles, but you're getting the same aerobic effect and benefits from swimming. And it's probably one of the best exercises that you can have for getting that good aerobic exercise and for toning.
Well, and we certainly are wanting people to understand the importance of getting that knowledge and understanding of not only how to swim, but what things they need to do as far as safety. And I think that you have a clip, a short clip regarding the importance of children learning water safety. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There is a clip that I'd like for everyone to see, because it is featuring the fact that that's one of the advances towards being a safe and responsible swimmer is learning how to swim.
Okay, let's take a look at that clip.
Oh, good.
I'm Audrey. I'm Abby. I saved Audrey from drowning right here in this pool. I was 5. I was 4. And thank goodness for Abby, she just reached in and pulled me up.
I'll never forget the two little hands connecting.
That was Abby's little hand. We learned a technique in swim class that the Red Cross did, If I hadn't learned aquatic safety from the Red Cross, I wouldn't have been able to save my friend that day. I'm very grateful.
Debbie, you teach water safety instruction and you teach young children. And as we saw in the clip, this saved a life. Can you tell us a little bit about the swim lessons and water safety classes that you're currently teaching?
Yes. Under the American Red Cross program, I'd just like to feature a couple little books. This is called Raffi Learns How to Swim, and this deals with levels 1 and 2, and then also continues on with Waddles in the Deep, which goes into levels 3 through 4. And of course, there's the higher levels if you wanted to get into competitive swimming and diving. But the classes are set up and designed so it gives this children and adults some skills and techniques that they know how to appropriately swim in the water, how to keep themselves safe at all times. And one of the major components that I really like to emphasize, which is part of the American Red Cross program, and that is the water safety. Not only is it important to learn how to swim, but even my younger children at age 3 years old learn some appropriate skills of how to recognize and assist persons in the water who may be having difficulty. One of the things that we do in that program is emphasize the fact that you need to be aware and respectful of the waters around you and to know your limitations. And instinctively, even with young children, they know immediately that that water is bigger than they are, and that they can get in trouble without having somebody being supervising them at all times, which is a key component. You can't just let children get into the pool in your backyard or a neighbor's yard and say, oh, I know they're in the pool, we'll just check on them every 5 minutes. It doesn't work that way because anything can happen at any second. With an adult, person could have a stroke or some other physical ailment that could prevent them from assisting his or herself to safety, as well as it could be for a child. We've had children that just having fun may slip and fall and hit their head and fall into the pool. And unless someone's there to recognize that the person's having difficulty, then that person is set up for a tragic situation, which leads into the training of the water safety. At the end of all of my swim classes, I have what is called Safety Day. And part of my Safety Day is to teach these young children, even as young as 3 years old, how to lie on their belly and do a reaching assist. There's a chart that says reach or throw, do not go. The last thing we want to do is go into the waters to assist someone who is having difficulty in the water. Rather, we would prefer to reach something out to that person, whether it be a pole or a stick. You know, we see those swim noodles that we see a lot of the children use during the summer. Very inexpensive. They can run like $1, $2 at the most. And just simply teaching the child how to lay on his or her belly and reach that noodle out to the person that's having difficulty can save a life. Much in the same as they could take that noodle or a kickboard or any kind of flotation device and throw it to that person. Now, ironically, most persons think that if you do a reaching assist or a throwing assist, it has to be a flotation device. Not necessarily. If you don't have a flotation device around you, you can use a towel. You could use a jacket, anything that you can extend your reach to that person to assist him or her back to safety.
And the depth of the water does not necessarily make a difference as far as the risk of drowning. Is that correct?
Absolutely not. Which brings me to this poster here. It says on this poster, in your house and in your yard, watch for water. Be on guard. And you can see in this poster here, the very first picture is showing a child bathing in the tub. And you know, I've heard stories in the past where you'll have a child that has drowned in his or her own bathtub. And that's really sad because maybe the parent got distracted for whatever reason And you are never, ever, ever to leave a young child in a bathtub, because again, that child might be trying to stand up, could slip and fall, hit the head, and then they're in trouble. So we always want to make sure that even in a bathtub, even though that water is shallow and that child may be able to sit up in the water or stand up in the water, that does not mean that the child cannot slip and fall and hit the head and be knocked unconscious. And much is the same around, we're seeing a picture here where it's showing a father and a son fishing. And one of the things that I really like that I'm seeing is that the child has a life jacket on. I wish that picture was featuring that the father had a life jacket on too, because who's to say that didn't catch a big fish and that child could be pulled into the waters? Well, fortunately, the child would be floating, and that jacket would keep that child afloat, but not necessarily keep that child safe from being pulled away from a current if there aren't any strong currents there. So it's really important that the adult be wearing a jacket too. Don't just pack it, wear your jacket, so that the parent and the adult can always be prepared to be safe to do an assist should a reaching or throwing assist is not appropriate, because you're going to have distances sometimes where there's no way you can do a reaching assist, or you cannot do a throwing assist because the person's too far from you. And at that point we would have to look at some other options, which I'll share in just a minute. Also looking here at a kiddie pool where children are playing in the pool, which is very typical in the summer in family backyards. Those are nice, those are fun. However, it's extremely important that these pools be dumped out at the end of the day, because even though you or I may be looking after our child or other children, that doesn't mean someone else is not thinking about that pool being there. A child could wander out of the house and like, oh, there's a pool, this looks inviting, climb up the stair and fall into those waters.
You know, Debbie, it seems like every summer we hear of drownings. Do you feel like the main cause for that is that children are left unattended? Is it because people don't learn to swim? What do you think is the real issue for our hearing about drownings every year? Do we just not take the water seriously enough?
I think it's everything that you just mentioned. I think the key factor is the lack of ability to learn how to swim. And that's not always privileged to all persons. On some levels, not everybody has the time or the money's available to do that. But you can go to affordable programs to learn how to get some basic skills. I think we have the instinctive knowledge not to do certain things because it's scary for us or dangerous for us. I think most children know not to jump off a building, much like they're not going to jump into waters. However, there are those that do. So by learning how to swim and learning some appropriate techniques, that is going to be what's going to help limit those drownings, because one of the major things that I find statistically in drowning reports is that two things: the person was near open waters and they weren't thinking, got too close to open waters where the person was dragged in. We had an incident here a couple years ago where a youth was down near some open waters and was just wading in the water, and all of a sudden the current took this young youth under and unfortunately drowned. Much the same when persons go on a boat, you know, they don't think, which goes back to you need to, you know, wear your jacket, you don't just pack it. And typically every time I read of a drowning involving boating and or open waters, it's because people get into areas that are beyond their ability and they think they know how to swim, but in reality they don't. And we just have to constantly be mindful of our own limitations, as well as how we're going to be able to assist somebody else.
Well, you know, my son is in the Coast Guard, and this is something that he has shared with me from time to time, and that is that people simply underestimate the seriousness and the strength of water, and secondly, they overestimate their ability.
Yes.
What he said he runs into so often is the people that do drown were very strong swimmers, but the power of moving water is something that people just simply do not understand, which of course is one of the reasons why the American Red Cross tries to get that message out there. If you're in flash flooding situations, you never drive through the water. Well, you certainly don't want to get into water that's moving and can sweep you away and into another, kind of be overcome by water. And then also, if you've got another event going on, for example, on a boat, that maybe is stressful, that our own bodies react to that, and we may not be in that calm frame of mind where we can swim at the level that we normally swim. And so what are some of those other things? You mentioned Safety Day. What do you teach people about, the life jackets and those kinds of things during that Safety Day that you hold? And is this with each class that water safety class?
Yes, every class that I teach, the very last lesson is Safety Day. And when I have that Safety Day, I emphasize to the parents, you need to come dressed to get in the water as well. This is about you being just as knowledgeable as your child to come in and know what to do, because ironically, a lot of these parents that are bringing their children in do not know how to swim. And when we have the Safety Day, that's where we teach the children how to do a reaching assist or throwing assist, as well as don't just pack it, wear your jacket. I'd like to just show a basic jacket. This is a Coast Guard approved life jacket, and this is one of the jackets that I use during our Safety Day. And each child on Safety Day will put on a life jacket. And we have that child, all the children, physically get into the water with assist at first, because it's a little bit scary for them, so that they know that when they're in the water, it's called the help position. And basically the help position, you are hugging yourself and then you're bringing your knees up, so you're kind of like in a fetal position. And the reason for that position is to help to keep your body warm, and so that your head's above the water and you're on your back. That is if you were in the water by yourself. Then we lead from that position into what's called a huddle, much like a football team does when they get in a huddle to discuss a play. We want to get all of those persons that may have fallen off a boat for an emergency and get into a huddle position, so that they're all together in an event that if they're an emergency in open waters, that it's easier to find a group of people rather than one. And I think that is really an essential component that persons need to practice regularly. And I emphasize with the parents, yes, I hear often that the parents make sure that the children have jackets on when they get on the boat, but oddly enough, the parents aren't wearing the jacket. And I emphasize the fact, just like we featured in the poster, that the parents need to be prepared as well. And that I think we need to have what's called an emergency action plan, so that if an emergency should occur, just like if you had a fire in your home, you need to know what to do, where to go, and how to respond, so that when the event does occur, we're not panicking. We know how to respond appropriately. And when kids go to school, they have fire drills, they have tornado drills, so that the kids are prepared that if that alarm goes off, they know what to do. And this is much in the same with the water safety, that I want these parents to lead these children through these exercises, or drills if you want to call it that lets them practice floating in the water with their life jacket, doing the drills where they're doing the reaching assist, so that they are prepared in the event should an emergency occur.
It's interesting that you mentioned the emergency response plan regarding water. Of course, American Red Cross is very involved in disaster preparedness and a disaster response plan, and educating individuals on what do you do to be prepared. What we are trying to do is help people overcome their fear of the unknown. And if we can kind of walk through in our mind scenarios where we might be put in a position of panic if we didn't know what to do, panic is really something that is easily avoided if you have a plan. Because when you have that plan, for example, in a disaster type situation, we always encourage people to get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. And really, you could carry that over to the water as well, I suppose, because getting a kit, okay, well, what things are you going to need? You're going to need a life jacket. You're going to need maybe the noodle that you're talking about.
Right.
If you've got a backyard pool and someone is, you've got children playing, maybe you keep one of those out so that you can make sure you can pull a child in. But what kinds of things are you going to need? And then what's your plan, the huddling, and then being informed, I would assume, might be looking at where you are in the water, if you're going out boating, what are the weather conditions, and what other things might be in that kind of making those plans.
Well, one of the things that I use in when I finish my safety class, I provide the families with some bulleted guidelines which talk about home safety, boating, things, equipment that they need to be aware of, and I basically have pulled that from the Water Safety Handbooklet. Like anything, if we're going to go dancing, we want our dancing shoes. But if we're going to go boating, we want to make sure that we are properly prepared, that we have our life jackets. When we get ready to go swimming, we want to make sure that we have our swimsuits. So we want to make sure that if you have a pool in your backyard, that you have that equipment available. If you go to pools, much like where I teach swimming, in public facilities, you're going to have a rescue tube such as this. Excuse me for one second, let me just get this off my lap. And you're going to have a rescue tube that you will, when you go to any open waters to the local parks, you're going to see a lifeguard with this piece of equipment. So that would be one thing that you would want to consider. You would want to also consider having, they call them the little lifesavers candies, and that's the ring buoy that has a rope attached so that if someone were a great distance out into the water, that you could throw that ring buoy out to that person that has a rope attached to it, so that if I were throwing it to you, you could grab onto that ring buoy and then I could pull you back in. Now, it's something that you need to learn how to use appropriately. It's not hard to do, but just one of those things that if you have the guidebook, and even if you go online, the internet is so accessible to us these days that you can easily go online and look at posters and pictures and information that can guide you through these type of techniques. But being prepared, if you want a first aid kit, I think most homes have Band-Aids and alcohol and peroxide, those type of things, that should a child fall and skin his or her knee, that you have the bandages and the stuff to clean the wound with. You need those same kind of thought processes around a pool so that you have the first aid kit, flotation devices, things that you know how to use and have. And that's another part of the safety day, is to make sure that all persons understand what equipment is available, what is around them. Look around your environment and say, geez, what could I use to help someone should there be an occurrence that somebody needed assistance?
Well, and certainly whenever you think of that kind of environment around a pool, those kind of situations where you might have an emergency, everyone really needs to learn CPR and first aid. And with American Red Cross, the Professional Responder CPR is a 2-year certification, because typically if it's a nurse, an EMT, a paramedic, those professionals that are around that kind of environment all the time, they may remember their skills a little better. A lay person that is maybe just someone that has a pool in their backyard and they've taken CPR, the research shows that after a year they may not remember those things to the level that they can just put them into action in the midst of a stressful situation. And clearly you don't start CPR if someone has a pulse and is breathing. It's when they do not have a pulse and they're not breathing that you start CPR. Clearly that's a stressful situation, and we encourage people to have CPR along with their other water safety as well as the lifeguards. That's a component of that lifeguard training, is it not?
Absolutely. And one of the things that you really hit upon that is a key factor is if you don't use it, you lose it. I know that I had periods of times in my swimming career that I hadn't taught for a while. And when I went back to teach it again, I had to review some of those skills of the number of compressions to give as opposed to the number of breaths that you give and so forth. And that is so important because we have to really pay attention and practice over and over and over again so that we are comfortable and prepared to do it without thinking. We walk without thinking, we talk and breathe without thinking. We might have thoughts that, of things that we want to say, but just basic, natural, everyday things we just do without thinking, and we need to have that instilled to ourselves when we perform CPR and first aid.
Well, and I'm really glad that in our area we have this education available to anyone that would like to register for these classes. And they can certainly call the American Red Cross office and find out about where our water safety instruction classes going on. And you also had mentioned earlier to me that you're looking for more instructors, for water safety instructors, and you train water safety instructors. Is that correct? Can you tell us just real quickly about that?
Yes, that is correct. Unfortunately, we don't have enough persons that are water safety instructors in this area, and something I really want to promote and enhance. And so I'm looking at probably within the next 2 to 3 months conducting a class to invite persons to come in so that we can expand our opportunities to have more certified persons to train and to offer more opportunities for swimming programs and water safety for our community.
Well, and of course all of us would love to have more pools in the area. We'd love to see more people getting active and getting into shape and becoming healthier people. And swimming is a wonderful way to do that. But we do want to make sure that we're safe. And so I appreciate you being with us today and sharing some information. You've certainly reminded me of some things that are good to keep in mind, especially going out boating and the huddling and those kinds of things that you forget about. If you're not around it and you haven't heard it for a while, you simply don't think about those things. So thanks for being with us today and sharing that. And we hope that you will get involved. We hope that you will be ready to go out, get some exercise, become more active, and when you do, make sure that you and your family are safe, make sure that you have the things, the equipment that you need, and can be prepared in case there is an emergency. Thank you again for joining us today to discuss the aquatics program with the American Red Cross.